Yeah, I think you're correct. I think we have to be very careful about this. So first off, I would say that Keir Starmer was not complicit in any of this, and that he did prosecute a bunch of people. But some of the other, sort of what you were talking about, first off, is I think what makes me the most upset, especially after reading some of the, social workers' write-ups about this, is that they weren't calling them, victims of underage child rape. They were calling them child prostitutes in the write-ups, which I think is disgusting. I think it's crazy that was the normalized language. So they were the other thing too is that it's not Keir Starmer, who was head of CPS at the time, that I would say is responsible for covering this up, but there are people that are in government now that are responsible. There's evidence to direct it their way. I don't know if you know who, I can't remember his last name, but this guy named Raha, who was a criminal investigator. He worked with MI5 for many years. He left and became an independent journalist uncovering specifically the grooming gangs. And what he came up with is that Angela Rayner, he has evidence that Angela Rayner actively covered it up. Andy Burnham, who's the mayor of Manchester. And then there's a whole list of Labour politicians. And he has evidence on all of them. And the government has refused to, because they would essentially be investigating themselves, right? So what do you do in that sort of case?
My massive caveat in this, and I said it at the start, is I'm no expert in this, and you seem to know more about the detail. One person's cover-up is another person's just benign neglect of an issue. But this, both sides of this can be true at once, in that this thing has gone on for 20 years, and every 3 months there is a case, and you just insert another British town where taxi drivers in effect have created this grooming gang. It's always around kind of taxi drivers as well. And on the other hand, it can be true also that actually we've been talking about this for 20 years, almost 20 years. So cover-up isn't quite the right expression.
There's been no national investigation into this, and they've traced 85 towns and cities now with an independent investigation. Just released documents yesterday. So I would say it is covered up. It hasn't been investigated.
Well, again, I defer to your wisdom on this, but the very fact that the first case got to the national press in about 2007 or something or another, and people were prosecuted back in 2010, says to me slightly otherwise. But I take your point about a joined-up investigation that looks at the national-wide patterns of this and who was where when these cases came to their desk, and people were prosecuted, but the systematic failure of social services, but also the police on the ground when the first complaints were made in various cities, and what we can learn from that. All right, so I think the two opposite things can be true. It's not exactly a cover-up. However, there are things that we can learn and we should learn, and maybe a nationwide investigation which looks at all these instances, will pour some light onto this disgusting episode.
Good morning, guys.
This is content serendipity. We're creating content. Good for us.
Good morning, Holly. I'm listening. But man, I don't know, guys. I don't know where to go. I feel like, are we safe anywhere anymore? I don't know. sometimes. Like, is America? Should we all just get the fuck out of here?
Well, you're safer from sexual crimes in America than you are in England, and you're safer from gun crimes in England than you are in America.
Well, I'd rather be raped than my children be killed at their school. I'll say that.
Oh, well, then America's perfect for you. No, I'm sorry. England's perfect for you. It's backwards. Backwards. You need to move to England.
I know that's fucked up, but I'm for real.
These are the questions now, right? Like, where do I want to live? Do I want to get raped, or do I want my kids to get killed in school?
You know, it's crazy because the little girl who was like, hey, stay away from my sister. She's only 12. She got arrested. Not the guy who was calling them sexy, but the girl who was like, yo, stay away from me. So this is weird that we're taking those kind of priorities. Like, I want to ask really hard questions, but it's like, hey, there's a lot of details there. The parents of the girl are saying one story. The news is saying another. The UK government is saying a different story than the people who are from that culture are saying, no, it's not a migrant issue. It's a definition of the word rape. When a little girl feels that she has to swing an axe and a knife, I don't care what your beliefs are. Something is wrong. Fucking fix it.
That's exactly what Ewan said earlier.
Did something new happen in the UK that I may have missed that brought this conversation?
Yeah, little Scottish girl. If you just look up Scottish girl knife.
It started, as a recap, it started because Ewan was talking about living in England, and we had somebody from Georgia talking about wanting to live in England, and Ewan was saying, you don't want to live in England, it's a disaster. And then he started giving details about the rape groups and things like that, and a lot of us didn't know about that, and so we got really in depth to it. We started looking at doing some research, and
cool.
we found that England is...
What happened with the Scottish person with the knife? The Scottish girl?
Yeah, so just from what I know, and if somebody knows more, then please correct me. But a little Scottish girl with her sister walking on the street. Her sister gets approached by this migrant, and he's kind of trying to, I don't know, engage them in some way, talk to them that they're sexy or whatever. And supposedly, what happened was that this is not the first time that this has happened, and so they're much more vigilant about protecting themselves. And so you have something like, hey, the girl whips out a knife, like draws like a little axe. It looks like medieval and stuff, but she pulls it out and says, like, stand back, my sister's only 12. Leave her alone, kind of thing. And then the guy keeps going, and really don't know what happened after that. The kind of video cuts off, but apparently one of the girls ended up in the hospital, according to some reports. Now, it'd have to be confirmed, but that's kind of like rad, that there is this, hey, migrants take priority because we can't be racist. Seems to be the story. I'd like to be wrong.
I don't think, listen, I'm going to check out of this conversation because I fully appreciate that, you know, there's no two ways about it. This terrible grooming gangs thing did happen in the UK, is probably still happening somewhere, and we need a root and branch torchlight on it as to the reasons why things got so bad. But, you know, if the conversation started with don't go live in Britain because you're going to get raped, you know, it's like, come on now, right? And, you know, I'm proud to say that I come from somewhere which has free universal healthcare, right? Which has, and for somebody who, I loved my time in California, lived there for 9 years, I think we have a better work-life balance than in America. We have a low overall cost of living. You know, I could go on. America's a wonderful place, right? But if the conversation started, well, you know, you're going to get shot in America or you're going to get raped in Britain. No, it's like, you know, we should all be a little bit more adult and a little bit more nuanced with our conversations. And again, I am not saying that Britain is perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But anyway, yeah, thank you for indulging me and letting me on the stage.
The conversation didn't start that way. That was my sarcastic commentary 3 minutes ago.
All right, Mike.
The conversation started by Ewan giving us actual facts about what's going on over in England, which sounds pretty fucking messed up because we pulled up some statistics and saw that the UK is the top of the entire world of countries for amount of sex crimes, and it used to be Sweden. The UK is doubled Sweden in the last little bit of time, so it seems like it is a very serious problem. And, whether or not we want to talk about it, it has political implications based on the liberal politics that have allowed, apparently, it sounds like a government to largely turn its nose to some serious issues because of the political implications of being called racist, which I think is a fascinating concept because the United States was kind of heading that direction. And Trump disrupted a lot of that by saying, you know what, our liberal politics are going a little bit too far. We can't have men and women's sports. We can't focus on transgender issues as a number one priority. And, not every white person is racist when they call out statistics.
Hey, Royfield, question for you. Are these the rape gangs, are they happening in Ireland? I feel like I don't hear about it there.
I have no idea. Ireland's another country. I couldn't comment on Irish politics at all. I don't know.
All right, well,
I have no idea.
Never mind. But for the stage then, because the reason I ask is I was there recently for a couple weeks, and I had been there 20 years prior, almost 15, 20, and I don't recall it being near as multicultural as when I saw it, and mostly when I was there, very heavy Muslim population seemed to be walking around in various cities across my time there. And I was just curious if that was happening there, because it doesn't seem like they have these problems there, and wondering why.
I'll just quickly answer you, Holly, then I'm gonna bounce out of the room. Immigration into Ireland is a relatively recent phenomenon. So if you look at the mass migration of people from the island of Ireland, it's the potato famine in the 1840s. And Ireland has been a net exporter of people ever since. The population of Ireland, this is kind of from memory, so don't exactly quote me on this, but the overall direction of what I'm about to say is going to be true. The population of the island of Ireland in 1800 was about 6 million. And the rest of the United Kingdom was, I think, something like 10, something like that. The population of the island of Ireland is now 6 million, still 180 years later, whilst the population of the rest of the UK is 65 million. It shows you how much people left Ireland because of the potato famine in the 1840s. So hence you have the massive Irish population in Canada, in America, in places like Philadelphia, Boston, etc., Chicago, also in Australia. So all the way until the late 1990s, people left Ireland. If you were young and you had a family, you left Ireland, primarily actually to the UK. So my home city of Birmingham, massive, massive, massive Irish population, so much so that you don't even think about it. But 30% of the white folks in Birmingham, my hometown, Irish descent. So the reason why I mention all that is when I went to Ireland, purely anecdotally, in 1996 the first time, I was literally stopped in the street because I was black, because you just didn't see non-white migrants in Ireland. Since accession to the EU and with the Irish economy doing really well, in the early 2000s, you got lots of European migrants to places like Dublin and non-white Irish folks, non-white immigrants, going to Ireland. So now we are seeing first and second generation non-white Irish people, and it is incredibly common to go to somewhere like Cork or Limerick and see somebody who is black or brown who has an Irish accent and will call themselves Irish. It's a relatively recent thing, unlike in the UK, where there has been black and brown English people since the 1940s 1940s, insignificant numbers. There always were some before in places like London, but in terms of the mass wave of migration to the UK, so in the last census, 18% of people in the United Kingdom are non-white, and that fundamentally stems from 1948. Ireland is much more recent.
Thank you. Ewan, did you want to chime in on?
Oh yeah, I was going to agree with Royfield. I think like what's going on in Ireland right now, from what I've seen, is that because Ireland is still part of the EU, like the Republic of Ireland is still part of the EU. They still go by like EU law and stuff like that. So again, a lot of the migration there has been much more recent. But I mean, this is the other thing too, is that some of the issues in Ireland that have been arising has been illegal migration because they're part of the EU and they have to run by the ECHR, the European Court of Human Rights laws. There have been issues where they've been setting up these like huge migrant camps like all over Ireland. There have been like towns where illegal immigrants have been put in, and there's more of them than the actual population of the town. It's an incredibly tiny island. It's even smaller than the UK, and they've seen a massive influx very quickly of immigration. And some of it good, some of it bad. That's just the reality of it. I mean, with places like Scotland, for example, with the grooming gangs, things had not been investigated in Scotland previously, for example, but now that things are being investigated, it's starting to turn up that there were and are still active grooming gangs in Scotland. So, I mean, it's like incredibly complex what's going on here. But part of it is the fact that we don't have statistics because the government hasn't investigated yet. We don't have police reports because the police never reported on it. So that's kind of the issue that the UK is facing also, is that we don't know the full extent of all of this. There's independent investigations into the grooming gangs going on in the UK. There's one that just got released, I think, yesterday or 2 days ago, that you can, choose to believe or not. But the government has essentially been forced into a national investigation into the grooming gangs because something called the Casey report came out, highlighting the importance of doing a national investigation as it has been actively covered up.
So do you think that Ireland and Scotland could end up going down the road that Britain finds themselves in? Or do you think that they will?
Yeah, I mean, Scotland is part of the UK, right? So same laws, same national government. Essentially, they do have sort of a separate government, but it's still essentially it's Westminster that still can call the shots. So yeah, I mean, I think it's starting to happen out there. I think that we're starting to see a lot of like migration happening in Scotland, But I mean, like England, it's been happening for years in sort of the main cities, the towns like Glasgow, Edinburgh. Dundee is the town where the girl with the axe and the knife, that's where that viral video comes from. But yeah, I mean, it's so complex, but I think the part that makes it the most complex is the fact that we haven't had proper investigations into this yet. And essentially what the